So last 2 days ago, four of you all were able to spend some time in Williamson County. We received from the search
Mike. Mike, please. Thank you.
We received from the search firm via Dr. Looney a listing of contacts to visit and gather additional information. As according to our process, we were to make our decision. We voted that we wanted to move forward with Dr. Looney. The next phase was a site visit to get some additional feedback and insight. On that visit, we had Ms. Spearing, Ms. Shepard, Ms. Frog, and Ms. Pierce. And I don't know how you all want us to go about giving your report. We want to start with, we'll start with Ms. Spearing and then we'll work our way around.
Okay,
is that okay?
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
All right. We spent 4 hours in Williamson County, and I had the opportunity to see talk with representatives from the teachers union, and also 3 principals, elementary, middle, and high school principal, and in addition, some members of Dr. Looney's cabinet. And it was interesting that, he had glowing reviews throughout, and there was a lot of praise for him from teachers and principals. Apparently, he communicates constantly with teachers. He celebrates achievements. He meets with the union and representatives once a month. He demands that all employees work from the time they get to school to the time they end, bell to bell instruction. And he wants that instruction to be engaged and meaningful to the students. He's not a proponent of using TVOS to evaluate teachers because he has seen excellent teachers get a 1 on their evaluations. So he has worked with the state on this and given that feedback. He feels like it's his job to take away any distractions that teachers might have so that they can do their work effectively. He does look at test scores. Test scores are important. However, he uses those to alert himself on which schools need support. Then he gets out into those schools and works with the principals to get that support underway. He not only leads the district, Dr. Looney leads the entire community. If a teacher's having difficulty, he works with the principals to put different programs, goals in place in order to see the teacher make progress. If there is a problem with a principal in terms of conflict and personality conflict, he is willing to move the teacher. And since he has been at Williamson County, there's not been one teacher dismissal that has made it to the board level. He works with the teachers at their school, and he's also, when he does have to dismiss a teacher, he does it in such a way where at the end of that meeting, people are hugging each other and leave with their dignity intact. That speaks highly, doesn't it? In terms of the principals, they had shared that during the rezoning there was a lot of upset people, but Dr. Looney stayed cool. He gave people attention and he gained their respect, even though they didn't always agree with him. He's really a celebrity with kids. He's often in the schools or at ball games, and when kids see him, they want to get their photo made with him. He offers suggestions to principals when apparently when things need to be changed. He'll offer his opinion, but he's also willing to listen to the principal's thoughts on this. And if he hears that the principal has thought this through, he often will go with the principal's thoughts on the process and their goals for changing. The principals report that kids come in from the feeder schools every year a notch up. There's just constant improvement, not only in reading but also in math. He started his reform in Williamson County at the elementary level and then worked up to middle and then high school. When the Williamson County Board of Education came together with Dr. Looney, they wrote a vision statement, a strategic plan, and that included not only board participation, but community involvement and buy-in. He will not accept the status quo, and he sends weekly messages to his teachers about his appreciation. He told the principals, if you ever hurt a child, I will ruin your career. He will not let that happen. He has very clear expectations. The first line of support is at the building level, and then he comes in if necessary. I ask about compulsory education because we have that on our agenda every month. And he said, one of the administrators said that Dr. Looney would do his best to go and pick up a child and bring them to school before he would allow one to drop out. So his passion for keeping kids in school and for ensuring that every child is in a classroom with great instruction is admirable. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for attending and participating. Ms. Shepherd?
All right, I went with 4 people as well. First person I met with was their board chair, P.J. Mesro, who I found out is the brother of our Danielle Mesro.
Is it?
Yeah, so it was really kind of cool to make that local connection. P.J. had only positive things to say about Dr. Looney. I heard the word team and team builder throughout our nearly hour-long discussion. He described the director of schools, who is an effective communicator with faculty, staff, and students, as well as with the Board of Education. He has a current practice, I think Ms. Bering just mentioned, of sending out weekly communications. He calls them his Friday happy notes that he sends out to his faculty and staff every week. On a little bit of a humorous side, PJ said that he was called by Channel 2 News that morning to get an interview prior to our meeting, and he had the fleeting thought of meeting me at the county line with a shotgun, so I told him I was very grateful that he had a change of heart and mind on that. And just as a side note, they were all very helpful, and they were very gracious, even though they knew we were there to steal one of their best commodities. Everybody was very gracious and very honest with us, even though everyone came in saying, I want to come in here and tell you how horrible it is, and they all said the truth on him, so I thought that spoke volumes. The second person I met with was Judy Herbert, who's the William County Commissioner. She is the current chair of their Budget and Finance Committee for the Williamson County Commission. She's on her 5th year, but she comes from a family well entrenched in the political workings of Williamson County. She succeeded her father, who was in the county commission for 37 years, so clearly they don't have the term limits that we do. That's a hot topic. She too had only praise for Dr. Looney. She said that when working with him on the budget, Dr. Looney was honest and open. She said that even though they may not always agree on budget items, and Dr. Looney was always a professional in that manner. She also said that when he came this year with a budget that included a 5% raise for both teachers and support staff, that she thought he lost his mind. She said that she wanted a slightly lower percentage, and that Dr. Looney was insistent and prevailed that the 5% raise was necessary, and he did win that for faculty and staff and support staff. In meeting number 3, I had Tim Gaddis and Leslie Holman. Tim is the Williamson County Schools Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Assessment, similar, I think, to a Chief Academic, thank you, Officer. And then Leslie Holman is the CFO for the Williamson County School Board. Both individuals also had high praise for Dr. Looney. Tim Gaddis used the term team effort on several occasions on how Dr. Looney works with his staff. He said that Dr. Looney had, of all the directors of school that he has worked with, and he has quite a bit of education and experience, he said Dr. Looney had the most educational and institutional knowledge of any director of schools he's ever worked with. He says that he will go into the classroom to see how different lessons are being taught and offer help when needed. And he said a lot of times Dr. Looney will himself teach the class by himself. Leslie Holman, the CFO, said that working with Dr. Looney in the budgeting process was an open process. She used the word open quite often in describing her work with Dr. Looney on the budget. He has a practice of attending many, if not all, the county commission meetings to ensure that he has a working knowledge of the county and all the issues, as well as establishing relationships with the holders of their purse strings. My words, not hers. Needless to say, I came away from the conversations and the visit Monday with a reaffirmation that we have made the right decision for Metro Nashville Public Schools, but most importantly for the children in our schools. Dr. Looney is passionate in his devotion to the students as well as to the faculty and staff in Williamson County. He's an educator who has a whole child, holistic style, which can only benefit our students. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Shepherd. Thanks again for participating. Ms.
My
Pierce.
pleasure.
Okay, I also met with 3 people. So I met with Dr. Pat Anderson, who's a former school board member and a chair, and she'd served on the board for 12 years, so during the time when they hired Dr. Looney. So she had a comparison from a previous administration to his style, and definitely said that, right off the bat, they embarked on the strategic plan, which she brought me a copy, and even we walked through some of the goals and how they had been set, and most importantly was the stakeholder input from the internal staff and principals and teachers who would be carrying it out to the community and what they wanted to see in their schools. So they were very proud of that effort, and I asked her how they monitored the progress, and she said that the board would get monthly reports from Dr. Looney, specifically outlining the goals that had been set and the movement that they had been made towards reaching those goals, or what they were going to do if they saw themselves falling short of a goal. I asked her about, contentious issues, how he handled things like that, and the rezoning definitely came up, and they had a few elementary schools whose enrollments were just unbalanced, and they had thought about, the board prior to Dr. Looney had thought about addressing it just at those levels, and he came in and put a big analysis on the entire district, which did make it harder, but in the long run it stopped, or it reduced the amount of rezoning that they did going forward, because they were able to put it where the growth was happening to the schools. So she also felt like that the major strength of his was recognizing talent, whether that was in the central office level or, even in helping with principal and teacher hires. So then I met with Bobby Hullett, who is a current school board member, and he had taught at McGavock here, and then his wife also teaches in Williamson County. So he felt like a similarity that we hear, or some people feel, is that Williamson County had been operating in a little bit more of a culture of fear prior to Dr. Looney coming, and that he was able to foster more collaboration and respect, and much of that was done by being so present in the schools. We definitely continued hearing that about his presence in the school. Was a little unnerving at first, but as they got used to it and saw that he was really there to help the students and help them be better at what they did, it became a welcome sight. So anyway, and Mr. Hullett was just shedding a little bit more light on the current dynamics of their board, and how Dr. Looney had been navigating that. So anyway, he really wants him obviously to stay, but feels like that if he came, that there would be just benefit to Nashville. I asked him about a time, he's clearly such a fan of Dr. Looney, that I really wanted to know, well, was there a time that you disagreed with him? Tell me about a time that you weren't on the same page with Dr. Looney. And he said there was a specific incident in a school of his that really about 100 kids, it was just overcrowding past productivity, and the school board member really wanted to approach it in a different way based on really, what the parents were just begging to stay. And Dr. Looney also reached out to them but explained the reasoning of why he needed to move them to a school that was actually logistically closer to their homes. And it was tough during the transition, but he said, he was right. I'm glad I didn't keep fighting him on it and asking for more meetings and saying you're not listening to the parents, because it ended up being the best, and those families are happy being actually at a school closer to their homes. So then I met with Matt Largen, who's the president of the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce, and their whole take, coming at it from their perspective, is that Williamson County schools are their calling card, and there is a fear there of what happens if they have to embark on a search. I mean, they've recognized that Williamson County schools have been strong for a very long time, but Dr. Looney has come in and helped take them to another level of not just achievement, but growth. And there was an interesting perspective from some of them that having spouses who'd actually had taught in Metro and then gone to Williamson County, that it was a step up in expectation. And so he said, you're going to be in for some transition because he really does set the bar high and demands that, but in a more nurturing way. But so anyway, I was trying to ask him some things that might be challenges, and he did say that at times there could be just so many ideas that you're wanting to make sure it's all focused. But they have enjoyed their partnership with Dr. Looney and are really, really sad to see him leave. And all three of these people continue to come back to student outcomes as his primary focus, and that you can guarantee that every decision will be made through that light. So that concludes my findings.
Thank you. Thanks, Ms. Pierce. Ms.
So
Rogue.
I think that everyone has pretty much sort of summed up my experience as well. I also heard endless glowing reports on Dr. Looney's work in Williamson County. I think the overarching theme is that they really don't want to lose him. And so they were joking that perhaps they would come in and sabotage our interview so that we might hear bad things about him and not take him from Williamson County. But just in general, I had several people tell me, or more than one person tell me, that he is the best instructional leader they've ever worked under. He is by far the most collaborative. He involves everyone from his top level officials down to parents in his decision-making. He is excellent with people. He is wonderful with teachers. He's supportive of teachers, but he has very high expectations, and he will lead with a firm hand when necessary. And so I left very impressed, and much more impressed than I was last week. So I met with a variety of people. First, I met with 2 attorneys who have worked with the district on various cases. I also met with one of the members of the PTA council there. And then I met with a variety of cabinet members serving under Dr. Looney, the Deputy Director of Schools, Head of Human Resources, Head of Elementary Education, Head of Secondary Education, and Head of Finance. And I think because I met with the attorneys, that's one area. I don't think anyone else met with them. I have endless notes on some of the cases that were raised, and I actually just dug into the allegations that were mentioned at our meeting last week, but also I just asked the attorneys, or just sort of walk me through anything controversial that's happened. So we talked about a number of cases that the attorneys have been involved in the last few years. I think the best way to sum it up is that the attorney who works, the in-house counsel that has been working for 5 years with Dr. Looney, 5 of the 6 years that he's been there, he said that there is a policy in the district that requires him to report a superintendent's ethical violations to the board chair, any behavior that might be an ethical violation, and Dr. Looney has never triggered that requirement. The attorney also said that he has worked closely with Dr. Looney. Dr. Looney often consults him to make sure that he is following proper procedure and is not stepping over any lines. Without going into immense detail, there was an allegation raised that the district tried to cover up an incident involving inappropriate sexual behavior on behalf of an employee. And I'm happy to, if anyone has questions, I'm happy to talk about exactly what happened. But there was an SRO officer involved, the school's resource officer, and when the allegation was raised in the school, that officer was initially involved, and within 3 to 4 hours, the district had contacted a woman with the sheriff's department that they knew worked with sex crimes. And so the district had that case in the hands of the the sheriff's office representative went within 3 to 4 hours, and it was rolling as of that night. And the person who was accused of the inappropriate behavior has since been prosecuted and is in jail. So I really saw no evidence of wrongdoing in that particular case. There were also some allegations about spending money on attorneys, and it was a little unclear as to what that related to from the email that we received, but we talked through a lot of, the attorneys and I talked through a lot of what has happened over the last year with the new board elections and some of the political activities that have been going on. And again, without going into a great amount of detail, I did not see any merit to the allegations raised in the anonymous email that we received. So if anybody has questions, I'm happy to go through all this. It's a lot of, I've got pages of notes. So, but I felt confident that there was no wrongdoing on the part of Dr. Looney. And let's see, make sure I'm not missing anything. I think that's it. I mean, I agree. I think some of us met with some of the same people, and again, you know, the reviews were similar from everyone else. So.
Thank you. Thanks again. Thanks so much for participating. We do have Mr. Pinkston on the phone, but I understand he cannot participate. You can clear your throat. Can you clear his? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So again, thanks for the feedback. Does anyone have any questions of any of those that attended? Any specific questions? Any additional comments?
Yes, I'd like to know where we go from here.
Yes, so would I. Okay, so a couple of things. So on our agenda, and you've received the agenda for the Thursday meeting, it is to affirm that we want to hire Dr. Looney as our next Director of Schools for Nashville Public Schools. I think what I have asked to happen, or I need to ask to happen, is that we also want to approve the contract. So I have copies of the contract. I'm going to pass it out to all of you. I've highlighted sections that I want you to pay attention to. We did start with Dr. Register's base contract that he had, and worked with Corey Harkey and TSBA to review what he had requested as things that would be conditions of conditions under which he would consider accepting the position. And so I highlighted anything that's specific in the contract around that. So I want to be able to approve the contract at the same time. So we, at the same time as after we hire him, approve the contract, and then
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night. We've sent a draft to Dr. Looney to review, and I don't think we've gotten any feedback yet. It's only been a couple of hours. Any feedback yet, so barring anything different. So this one is still labeled draft, because I do want you guys to focus on the highlighted sections, on those terms that are in there, and ask any questions at the meeting that you may have regarding those sections. I mean, you can ask questions now, I suppose, with Ms. Harkey here. Remember, we're not making any votes or any decisions in this committee meeting.
Just one other comment or question. So if things progress as you stated, and this passes tomorrow night, when will Dr. Looney be given the opportunity to sign the contract?
He can sign it that minute.
Thursday night or?
Yeah, he could sign it. Then he has a meeting that night, so he could be here if we absolutely force the issue, but Friday morning. And he could have it signed. So he did, as I mentioned, on his paperwork, indicated he could start on September 1. We asked the question, I think, 2 or 3 times, are you sure? September 1, and he said yes. We talked about in the meeting what he requested as compensation, so that's listed in here as well. And it is at $285.
Can we get a waiver on that residency?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that section in that one section. So on the residency, there is a code that says that he requires, but the board can make an exception. And so we talked about the fact that he has a student that's going to be finishing school in in 10 months. So we've given him 10 months. So that date is 10 months from his start date to relocate to Davidson County.
May I ask a question
You
about
may.
15, on page 5?
Yes.
Termination without cause. It says that the board may terminate the contract without cause upon 30 days' notice.
So, go ahead.
Well, I wonder how he feels about it.
He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it at all. So the second sentence that's in there was not there before. So it was sort of like that middle ground recommendation. So I'll tell you personally, I would be uncomfortable about us coming in here one day, I'm like, he had on a purple tie. Ugh, okay. So he's got to go. And so my original personal bent was to start at the third sentence. If any other governmental entity with legal authority causes the termination of Dr. Looney, meaning we no longer have a position, right? So let's just say we got rid of the position in Metro of Director of Public Schools, and he didn't have a job. So that makes sense to me. Originally, it was that first sentence and then starting at the third sentence. We inserted the part that says we will give him, if we did terminate him without cause, we'll give him the remainder that's due under his contract. Okay, so this is a 4-year contract, which is, I think, the max allowed under TSBA. And so let's say we decided on a whim to terminate his contract in year 2, we would still owe him 2 years' salary. I will tell you that this will probably still be a sticking point for him. And so we really need to think as a board. I don't know, can we make a recommendation here?
You can certainly discuss it. I mean, board members can express their thoughts. I would not want to see, there shouldn't be like necessarily a vote. The main discussion.
Can we make a recommendation as a committee to then discuss to put up as a motion at the board?
I guess you can't, my suggestion
Okay.
is that you can talk about it, and certainly if there's a consensus, that will lead where we maybe try to negotiate with the
Okay.
contract. But my best suggestion is certainly open discussion, talk about it all you want. That will certainly give Dr. Gentry and us
some
guidance
feedback
as
on
we
what to
go
do
through the
next.
final negotiation.
Was this clause in Dr. Register's contract? Was it?
Yeah.
And in fact, I will say in Dr. Register's contract, what it specifically said is upon 30-day notice, and then it basically said that we would pay 12 months' salary.
Yeah, not the
And so-
remainder.
And that's why this is, and I'll just say this was my recommendation. Dr. Gentry certainly already shared.
I said take it out.
So, I mean, it's certainly up to the board, whatever you guys decide. I put this in there just in the idea that this is the one employee that the board oversees, is the superintendent, the director of schools. And so having some ability to be able to terminate him, I understand where you might want to have that authority, but recognizing certainly that you would need to pay him it's kind of the middle ground, pay him for the remainder of the contract provision.
I'm sorry.
But it's up to you.
Did we check the TSBA and see if this is something that's in?
It's a boilerplate
It is.
statement.
Not all.
Because, we're not a right-to-work state anymore.
I understand.
Right.
And not all, I think if you look across the district, talking to the TSBA, different districts handle this differently. I know Dr. Looney's contract now at Williamson County does not contain a termination without cause provision like this. However, other districts do retain some kind of a termination without cause.
Well, this is something we might want, I can't even talk, might want to think about. So right now, if we hire him, that means there's a majority of the board that's, is happy with him and wants to hold hands with him. So in another year's time, we have 5 seats that are up for re-election.
Right.
So what if we have 5 brand new people and they walk in here and say, we don't like them.
Right.
So we want them out of here. That is not, maybe that's a scenario that may never play out, but we can't look into a crystal ball and tell if that's going to happen or not. So just think about that.
That's an excellent example.
I mean, it's interesting with the reasons behind Dr. Register being okay with this and him not. I mean, I'm just curious about that.
I think it's probably based on where Dr. Register was in his career when he came. Right? I mean, I don't know that, an extension was even something he was thinking about when he came. He came for something very specific at a very specific time with a goal in mind. And I would say that the reasoning why it probably never hit raised a flag on his radar is because of where he was in his career. Yes, ma'am.
So I have two concerns with this clause. I think, first of all, when you put a leader in place like Dr. Looney, they're going to be making some decisions that people just aren't going to like. I mean, there are going to be some tough times, and I know when we met with him this week, he, I guess it wasn't him, I guess it's one of these other folks that we met with mentioned that the first year was kind of hard because he was setting very high expectations, and he was very firm about that, and it took a little while for people to come around, and then once they came around, they are fully behind him. So, you know, I would hate for him to be in a position where he feels he is unable to make the difficult decisions he needs to make to move the district forward. And the other issue, which is maybe why he is concerned about this particular clause, is that a lot of what is happening in Williamson County is politically motivated, and you know, and a lot of the school board dealings have become politically motivated. So again, with the board turning over, I mean, I don't know how that plays out. I know in Williamson County, they turned over about half the board last year, and they've had a lot of conflict since. And so I would hate for a dismissal to be politically motivated as opposed to with cause. So that's my concern. And again, I really, after I went to the site, did the site visit, I was so impressed with him that I really think we need to make every effort to accommodate him. I don't want to be unreasonable, but if he does not have this, if he doesn't have this clause in his current contract, you know, that might make his current contract more appealing.
Any other thoughts?
Can we make a motion?
You don't have to make a motion, just remember, you have charged me per the last meeting to negotiate the contract. Tell me what you want. You don't have to vote on it. Take it out? We agree we need to take it out?
I'm thinking about, my suggestion would be just strike it from the contract. If you guys feel strongly.
I disagree.
You disagree?
What if he does something? I mean, we've not seen him work yet, especially in this district.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think if Dr. Register worked under those circumstances, I mean, we should hold those high expectations for anyone. This is a totally different district than Williamson County.
So just pulling on the thread that you started, what if he does something? That's a termination with cause. There is a termination with cause, for cause clause in there. So if he does something illegal, unethical, termination for cause, there is a termination for cause clause in the contract. And so the other thing I will say is, you know, it is still our responsibility to constantly monitor, right? And give feedback, and, you know, we may want to, in light of this, revisit, probably for the first year, the frequency of those evaluations. I know they're painful, but those deliberate conversations that give feedback, right, for the first year. And, you know, I think that that's a good compromise.
And termination for cause would include poor performance, correct?
Yes, it would,
I mean,
absolutely.
So if we find that he's not meeting our expectations, then we would have the right to.
Let's want to make sure, I don't see that spelled out
So
here.
certainly, yeah, that's a good question, but yes, under the material breach of the employment contract, his duties are to perform the duties of director of schools in a competent and professional manner. So
It's number 14.
If for some reason the board does not think that he is doing that for performance, whatever, if it rises to the level of a material breach of the contract, certainly you can move for termination with cause through that number 14.
So it would be poor performance, unethical behavior, what else? I mean, just sort of, I'm trying to think of any other examples.
So let me just read it out loud for the
sorry.
public, if you all don't mind.
Fraud.
So number
Okay.
14,
Willful
the board may
insubordination.
terminate, I'm going to read just for people that are listening, I'm sorry. The board may terminate this employment contract at any time for cause, which means in the event that Dr. Looney is unable to perform substantially all of his duties as director due to disability or any act of moral turpitude, willful misconduct, dishonesty, fraud, willful insubordination, material breach of his employment contract, or for any reason established by state law. Dr. Looney shall be entitled to a hearing before the board if he so desires. A hearing shall be requested by giving 30 days written notice of said request. If Dr. Looney is terminated for cause, no compensation shall be paid beyond the date of termination, and he shall forfeit any accumulated vacation and/or sick leave. I want to go back to and highlight section 11, which talks about evaluation. So it does, it does have in here, goals and objectives of the Metropolitan Public School System. At the end of the school year, the board and Dr. Looney shall evaluate the school system's activities and accomplishments in light of those goals and objectives, et cetera. The report and the evaluation of the activities and accomplishments in light of the goals and objectives shall be the basis of the evaluation of Dr. Looney by the board.
Personally, I'd be comfortable with removing number 15. I think we have enough of other bullet points in here that would address anything that would,
So do you want to remove it in entirety, or just the first two sentences prior to the one that says if the position itself goes away?
I like leaving in the last bit.
Yeah, so if any other governmental entity with legal authority to do so causes the termination of Dr. Looney due to imposed changes in the governance structure, the board agrees to pay Dr. Looney an amount equivalent to 12 months of his current salary.
I'll be okay with that.
All right. So we'll strike the first two sentences and start at the third.
We have to vote on that?
No. We just have to vote on the contract in its entirety tomorrow night. So we'll make that edit. We'll update the version to send to Dr. Looney, and then we'll be good to go for tomorrow. That's the only material change.
Thank you for working on this.
Yes. Thanks you for Ms. Harkey here for being very flexible and finding her way to HCA and all that other great stuff. Any other, I think that's all we have formally on the agenda. Anything else that we need to cover under this topic? Y'all get to go home. Yay. Bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.